Two boats are sailing upwind dead even. Are these boats move? Okay, two boats are sailing dead upwind. They're dead even on starboard tack. There's no current here. Okay? Zero current. They cross this line, and the current's ripping from right to left across the race course. So there's zero current. This would never really happen quite like this. Well, it could. And they sail across a perfect current line, okay, into current that's ripping from right to left across the course. Who's ahead now and why?
Number 2.
Why?
Because the current heads them.
Because you get a header. Okay, you get a left wind shift because this current's going from right to left across the race course. Okay, so both these boats sail, they're even. When they sail into this right to left current, it's a left wind shift. Okay, the true wind direction hasn't changed, but the wind that you're sailing in has, because the water is moved. So like, you're getting drugged sideways, right, through the water when before you weren't. Okay, so the way scientifically that we draw this, I don't even know what these things are called. Maybe a vector. Okay, so here's true wind direction. Okay, and the length is the speed. So this is however many units that is. Okay, and then the current today was going in this direction. I'm gonna make the current pink. Okay, the current was going in this direction. Okay? Does that make sense? So before you cross that line, your true wind direction is this black thing, right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 knots straight down the whiteboard. Okay? Now when you factor in, this is about what the current was today. Okay, not quite that strong. It wasn't 4 knots, but I'm going to leave it at 4 knots because it makes the example better. Okay? So you're actually sailing, what's the wind that you were sailing in today? How do you drew it? You complete the triangle, right? So this is the wind that you were sailing in today. Okay, so with the current makes it shift to the left and it makes it lighter. Does that make sense? Okay? So the race committee is set up, they're anchored. So they're not reading the current when they do wind checks. So their starting line was actually pretty square to the true wind direction. Okay? But it was very skewed to the apparent wind direction when you factor in the current. That's why if you looked at their flags on their race committee boat, like if you looked at the flags on the race committee boat, the line looked pretty square. Okay? But then what actually happened in the starts, boats were taking off on port and just annihilating everyone to windward them when they were able to tack and cross. Right? Does that make sense? Okay? And that's all because the current was ripping from right to left across the course. Okay, so if there's zero wind at all, and you're in 100 knots of current going from right to left across the course, you're going to feel 100 knots of wind in your face from the opposite direction. Right? Okay, you guys see how this works? Okay? So then we have to think about some of the simpler aspects of this. Currents ripping right to left across the course and actually a little bit downwind. Okay, what's that do to our ley lines? What's that do to our starting line? Okay, pin end, everyone gets jammed into the pin. Okay, you're getting pushed this way more than you realize. You're getting pushed down and you're getting pushed to leeward below the pin ley line. So pin end gets crowded really, really fast. Boat end opens up. Okay, everyone sets up at the boat and they get pushed down. Even the nastiest boat end crowded starts today ended up with a hole here. Okay? The very last start, everyone looked like they had learned it and they were set up really far away from the pin and they looked like they were going to be okay. And even still, we ended up with like few boats circling around. I have videos from today that I've already uploaded. Okay, so I'll send those to you guys. There's one in the last start and you can watch this happen. It's like no one's even going to be near the pin and then all of a sudden everyone's late. Okay? And part of it was because with the current, you guys weren't set up as high on the line as you thought you were. Okay, so with the current and with the header, because of the current, and then also just the current itself pushing you sideways, current pushing you down and sideways, right? Everyone, like, you're pretty far from the line, or they were pretty safe this way. You know, they had a lot of sideways gauge to windward of the pin, but they weren't quite on the line. They were down here, you know, a little too far. They were like 3 boat lengths under, when I think everyone thought they were right on the line. Okay, and by the time they got going, everyone was closer to the line, but boats that originally looked like they were going to be super safe ended up having to jibe around and not lay the pin. Okay? Top marks. We saw a lot of boats stacking up. You guys know this, right? A lot of boats stacked up under ley line, didn't make ley line, and we had just all kinds of crazy clusters, right? You guys saw that happen, okay? And then what we also saw was people overstanding like crazy on port on a few races. People like way over here coming and having to reach into the top mark. So everyone's overstanding like crazy on port and understanding, not going far enough on starboard, okay? And we have to factor this into the downwind. What's it mean for our downwind? It means if we jibe set, we're constantly getting pushed to the middle of the course. Okay? So it really opens up the jibe set options if there's any type of decent breeze and pressure that way. Carly jibe set in the first race, I think I got it on video, went from like 20th to like 8th. Made major gains. I think she rounded like 7 boats behind Walter and rounded the leeward mark like 7 boats ahead of Walter. But that was also because she had wind and pressure. Okay? So anyway, the most high-level thing that you guys can learn right now is that, I'm going to redraw this a little lower, is what was happening with the wind shifts out there. Because when the wind speed went up and down, even if the wind speed itself did not shift, you guys experienced a wind shift. Okay? Just from the wind speed going up, the wind appeared to shift right to you guys, even though the true wind direction did not change. Okay? The wind dropped, the wind appeared to shift left to you guys, even though the true wind direction didn't change. Okay, and I'm going to draw exactly what was happening. So, the other sneaky thing about the current angle today was it was kind of close to the wind direction, but it was definitely right to left across it. So, like, the committee boat was streaming with the wind. Like, the current, it didn't even look like there was any current streaming with the committee boat. And part of that's because they were in similar directions. You know, there was like a 45-degree angle difference between the two. But that made it really, really sneaky. Like, I motored my coach boat up and parked it here to check the current. And you know, I kind of drifted this way, and I was like, man, I'm going with the wind more than the current. There's really not that much current, but it was because the current was, you know, halfway with the wind. Does that make sense? So that made it a little bit sneaky, because I was trying to see the current on the course, looking at the committee boat, parking my boat, and it wasn't really showing up that much. But I could see it in what was happening with the sailboats on the race course, very obviously. And then I went and did a proper current check, and I was like, yeah, that's ripping. It just is ripping halfway in the direction that you're streaming with the wind anyway. So that made it a little bit sneaky. Anyway,